Good afternoon. This is Tuesday, September 15th, and you're listening to You Need to Know on WOIC Progressive Talk, 1230 a.m., or on the World Wide Web at strnetwork.com. I'm Arnold Carr, substituting for Frank Knapp, who's out of town, and I'll be here this afternoon and tomorrow also. We're going to have an interesting show as usual this afternoon. We're going to be talking about natural energy, healthcare, the AARP. That'll be our first hour. And our first segment here is Conservation Matters, sponsored by the Pew Environmental Group. And on the phone, we have J.C. Sutton. And Mr. Sutton, where are you calling from?
Well, hi there, Arnold. First of all, it's a pleasure to be on your show and talking with your listeners. I happen to be in San Diego, California today, but I'd like our listeners to know that I'm a Pawleys Island resident and have lived in the state of South Carolina for the past 3 years.
So what takes you out to San Diego?
Well, it's a project that we've been working on for wind farms in Southern California, so we're getting together with some prospective investors and participants in the project out here. But it ties in very carefully with what we're trying to do in the state of South Carolina.
So what is it that you're trying to do in South Carolina?
Well, as most people know, there was federal stimulus funding created on February the 12th by President Obama that specifically earmarked funds for wind energy-related projects. And we've been monitoring those projects for some time, but we've seen a great deal of results for neighboring states with South Carolina. Over the past 6 months, the ability to be able to fund through the federal government a green power energy development program has finally become a reality. And we want to be able to participate in that in South Carolina and be able to take advantage of development of green power.
And how do you propose to do that?
Well, initially what we have done is we've contacted the two largest utilities in the state, Santee Cooper and SCE&G, and they've been very cooperative on the onset. We've asked for specifically their assistance in a choice of locations to put up a test turbine wind farm, or actually I should say a test wind turbine. And it's kind of difficult finding a specific onshore location, but we've been able to locate two, one that would be applicable to Santee Cooper, which is in the Winyah Bay area near Georgetown, and the other, which would be applicable to power generated into SCE&G, which would be just off from Lake Murray.
Now, why are you choosing, well, I can understand why for SCE&G you'd want to choose a land-based site because most of SCE&G's customers are inland from the coast, but with coastal power generation, don't a lot of people propose putting wind farms out on the water?
Well, you're absolutely right, Aaron. A lot of people pretty much up and down the coast have been promoting an offshore wind generation program, and that will include states like Connecticut, Rhode Island, the Carolinas. I believe even Georgia is talking about it. But the problem that we found at the early stages is, first of all, the winds that we were able to test are just about the same as far as performance onshore or offshore. Most of the Met towers in South Carolina, particularly in the Georgetown area, are actually located onshore and have demonstrated that they're capable of efficiently generating power. And by not going offshore, there's a tremendous cost difference. One of the things that nobody has really been able to get a handle on is the cost for an offshore turbine, putting underground cables to a transmission station, and then designing and building a specific transmission station. By using onshore, and particularly in areas selected by Santee Cooper, they'll have access to their own generation facilities, which would mean no additional equipment costs. The location will be close enough that we won't have to worry about neighbors, easements, or expensive grid systems. So we just feel that economically at the early stages of wind power development, that an onshore test program will economically prove the programs that we want to continue to develop.
Would the type of onshore power generation that you're testing be adaptable to off-grid power generation for individuals and families?
Those systems are available, and we do have access to them, but we really haven't looked into them that much at this point, Aaron, specifically because we are focused on trying to work with the utilities first and prove the suitability and the compatibility of the systems with utilities first.
Now, you say that the utilities have been cooperative thus far with you. Do you feel like they're seriously looking at this as an alternative to coal and nuclear power, which seem to be the things? Well, Santee Cooper has backed off now from its proposal for a coal-fired plant, but SCE&G wants to go full steam ahead with building 2 more nuclear reactors in Jenkinsville. And so I was wondering, do you think they're looking at this seriously as an alternative to the more conventional and nuclear power generation?
Well, sir, we hope that they are, but you're absolutely correct. We really felt when we initially approached them that they were cooperative, helpful, and willing to listen to our proposals. There was no problem there, but in the back of our minds, we felt that obviously that the bulk of their resources and their internal commitments, if you will, were principally to the clean-burning coal plant for Santee Cooper, and as you just stated, the 2 nuclear facilities in Jenkins. Our hope is that as wind becomes more acceptable and as our efforts become a little more aggressive, that both Santee and SCE&G will give us the opportunity to, at our cost. I mean, this is not going to cost the ratepayers, nor is it going to cost the utilities. Our proposal has basically been to absorb 100% of the test costs, to indemnify both of the utilities for any manpower, labor, or costs that they would incur, but specifically to obtain enough data so that we can make the necessary applications to the federal government to have access to the stimulus funding. And just very quickly, I mean, just looking at your local neighbors, but I think Alabama got $119 million within the last 60 days. Arkansas got $9 million. Just in local states, Georgia got $21,630,000. So if you kind of add up the 3 states that are in the proximity of South Carolina, there's almost $200 million in funding that has already gone out to viable wind and solar efficient projects. And we'd like to be able to participate in those. We just have to prove that they'll work.
Now, were these grants or funds in the neighboring states obtained because the utilities in those states were part of the effort to obtain them, or were they obtained without the help of the utilities?
Well, in each case was different, but principally it's taken a private entity in conjunction with the local utility to make the formal application. Because basically the utilities have never really had any experience in operations or running a wind farm. So from an operating standpoint, a private company usually comes in and provides the initial know-how and background and purchase of the equipment. And then the local utility provides access into the grid, which is then available to lowering the costs, hopefully for the ratepayers of the state of South Carolina, as well as to be able to sell any excesses out of state to generate revenue. So principally, they're looking to develop additional megawatt inventories, I guess is the best way to put it, using these federal stimulus dollars through the states and through the local utilities.